I hope you don't drop like you did last time. There was a lot of editing for me, by the way.
Yeah, it was a bit of a.
I hate you. Let's do this. Welcome back to Get Sprint Radio. Back once again with Brent. Take it away.
How's it going, guys? It's good to be back.
All right. Brent, we're going to continue our conversation about the evolution of Agile. People call it Agile 2.0, Agile in the age of AI. This whole series, this whole season, we're talking about the next phase of Agile. And one important piece of that is the Scrum Master. So today we're going to talk about the fall and rise or return of the Scrum Master.
I started myself as what would be today called a Scrum Master, but it was a project manager role at the time. I don't think they defined what Scrum Master was back then, but I do remember thinking that, and not even thinking, I mean, this was told to me that it was all of the responsibility and none of the authority, which is tough.
Right. Which transitional for us, because I started the same way. How do you lead without authority? And if you think about it back in the day, project managers didn't really, and I don't know if today they still do have any kind of authority, but the title in itself, project manager, somebody with a PMP certification, comes with authority. So we understand that. So certainly an uphill battle for us growing into that sector, growing into that industry to establish ourselves as subject matter experts and just as important and just as relevant and just as authoritative as Scrum Master. But I think that was part of the downfall. That Scrum Master, the authority of a Scrum Master does not mean telling people what to do and bark orders and expect things to turn around. So
Yeah, I
let's
don't think a
talk.
Scrum Master really is telling anyone what to do. It is a lot of coercion, and a lot of documentation, and a lot of, I mean, and I've said this before. There's different perspectives in an Agile team. The Scrum Master really is focused on when are we going to be done? When is this going to be ready? Definition, all of these other things. While the technical team is really focused on the how and the product team being really heavily focused on the what, right? And so I think where we get stuck is when things start to blend a little bit. And then they also, nobody likes to be put on a schedule. A win is not fun. I mean, just we've all been there. When are you going to get that done, honey? I mean, trying, right? So I think they get knocked on quite a bit from that perspective, as well as you know, a lot of people don't know if that's of value or they don't see the value in that. And the reality of it is the customer's very focused on when, but the internal team struggles with trying to be held to a schedule.
And I think the when is a natural response or a natural ask for somebody that's expecting any kind of service or product or goods. When am I going to get this car? When am I going to get this food? When am I going to get this episode? That's a natural thing. Um, Agile helped with it's not that I'm going to deliver you something by an end date. It's the amount of work that's on my plate allows me to present this to you at these time frames.
Mhm.
So there's a disconnect there between the people asking and the people delivering the news. But that's a whole different subject that we don't want to get into. But let's talk about where does the Scrum Master fall into this? The Scrum Master at its core, let's just reel it back to its intent, to the original intent of the Scrum Master. If you're telling somebody right now, you and I teach Scrum Master classes, you and I coach Scrum Masters, you and I uh, are mentors to a few people that in the industry who whether they're becoming Scrum Masters or already are existing Scrum Masters. What are good characteristics or a sign functionally, not personally or behaviorally, of a Scrum Master? Functionally.
Yeah, actually, I've been mentoring quite a few people that are working on this, and the Scrum Master role is not for the thin-skinned. It's a tough role.
It is.
You're going to get pushed all over the place from every direction, whether it's on
Push,
the customer side,
challenge,
the team
yeah,
side,
push and challenge, yeah.
leadership side. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to be very thick-skinned. You have to have a presence. I think that these are some of the soft skills that you just need to embody, that you are capable of not only being very knowledgeable of the current situation, knowledgeable of where you're going as strategically and as a direction, but also able to defend that and have this, the gall, if you will, to be able to drive that forward and certainly stand up for it. Because, and I went to a great presentation many years ago, said, "Don't be the project chicken," and I loved that because personally at the time I was basically a scrum master, but I was always scared to tell either the team or the customer, "We're not going to make it," and that's tough. It's really, really tough, but you have to embody that total transparency and honesty and be able to understand and have the thick skin to be able to defend it.
I think at its core, you said it right. You got to have thick skin to be a scrum master. Why? And I think it goes back to what I was saying. The transition from traditional project management into scrum master was something that a lot of companies and a lot of organizations were saying, okay, we're going to give this a shot. So go ahead, be a scrum master, but just know I'm going to expect this and expect that. So I think scrum master is probably the most accurate person to ask, how are we doing in our transformation? Because you're not going to see it overnight. You're not going to see it within a couple of days or a couple of weeks, but you're seeing the seeds being planted and you're seeing the plants growing from those seeds. So at
Well,
its core, go ahead.
and I think s- Scrum Masters misrepresented a lot, right? Like, and even in Safe 6.0, they're trying to really kind of spread that out and say, look, they're more than a Scrum Master. They're also a mini Agile coach or an Agile coach. In fact,
Team
they're
coaches,
titling the role around that. You are
lead,
coaching as much as you
lead
can.
local team coaches. Yes, I call them local team coaches as
You
opposed to
are.
an adult coach. Yeah.
Yeah, and scaling perspectives, and this is the best way that was explained to me, is that if the whole program was a company and you are essentially running that whole program, then you would be, embodied in company terms as one of the executives that is just in charge of all of that. But inside of each of those is another pod. And when you get down to the Agile team, they're really just a mini micro CEO of their own little team. And being able to own that at that level, back to the thick skin.
So the scrum master role definitely exploded over the last 10 years. That's something that we've seen evident. You can go on LinkedIn, you can go on jobs.com, whatever, and you'll see there's a insurmountable amount of scrum master roles out there.
Mhm.
Everybody's hiring a scrum master, and they'll add on something to scrum master slash project manager or scrum master. What I personally started as a scrum master slash project manager slash QA manager, right? And you actually said something last year about how a lot of people think a scrum master is not really a role as much as just a job function that you can do in addition to your job, or a scrum master doesn't do anything all day. So
Well, I think we have,
that
as
came
industry,
from,
have helped paint that picture incorrectly, right?
yeah, and I think it
And
came from a lot of people that contributed to that. It goes
yeah,
back to people having titles or letters next to their name. They just go when it's certified, and they don't have the right personality or the experience or
they're
the
not
worst right.
accountable. They feel
Yeah,
like they're not accountable. And if I can't hold an Agile team accountable and somebody that is driving that, then what's the point, right? And so I think that there is a misconception that Scrum Masters are just little schedulers and that
yeah,
they are facilitating daily stand-ups and just doing the motions through it. But and then the idea was that project management was like, that's the project manager. They own the outcomes of this and they are
yeah,
driving that forward. I think we as industry have painted a picture incorrectly of what that role really is.
yes.
And in addition to that, we have um, not only not empowered them enough, but also not set the expectation correctly.
So let me ask you a question. and I know provoking here, and we're gonna piss off a lot of
We're gonna piss off all kinds of people on this one, and
we're
I
gonna piss
I
off a
have
lot of
mixed
Scrum
emotions on
Masters
this
today.
too. Yeah.
And this is because I have a bone to pick with some Scrum Masters that I've worked or mentored or coached, right, in the past, and I'm still continuing to work with some, and I question some of their methodology. So we're gonna piss off a lot of people, but there's hope. Stick around. We're gonna explain everything. We promise. So let's talk about how the Scrum Master became the face of Agile for the last 10 years. Not until you actually practice Agile, you know that there is something beyond a Scrum Master. There's a product owner, there's a product manager, there's portfolio management, there's all these. There's You wouldn't know that there's something called SAFe or Scaled Agile Framework or Scrum at Scale or anything else if you were not already practicing Agile. And who helped you practice Agile was a Scrum Master. Your first introduction to anything Agile was probably a Scrum Master.
Well, also
And
the mistake we make is that we stick a Scrum Master in there that knows everything about Agile, but knows nothing about the product,
or the community that
or
or the
vice
sorry,
versa.
or the organization that they're going to go work for, or the organization that they're going to help, or the team that they need to transform. Absolutely, you nailed it. They know nothing about the product. No. And what is that? That's traditional project management. In my opinion, a lot of project managers, they may need to be familiar with how these are the product managers. I'm sorry, these are the project managers I've worked with in the past. They knew that they had deliverables, and they wouldn't question or push back if something didn't seem right or didn't question right. I know for a fact when I used to be a Scrum Master and I used to listen when the product owner was doing the sizing with the team, and I hear the team saying, "Oh, 13," and they're like, "Okay, let's move on." I'm like, "Whoa, hold on, let's go back. At 13 is something that we size, right? So hold on, let's go back a second. Why are you giving this such a high number? Why is this?" And then they would say, "Well, that's how long it's going to take." What's my role now as a Scrum Master?
You have to find what's the word we used to use, concurrence in some way, shape, or form of what you're going to evaluate that at. And here's the thing: your perspective is probably different than products. Products' perspective is probably different than the delivery team. The one that
Right.
matters is the technical team that is producing it, because there is a how aspect if we go back to that whole idea. And perhaps the how is they have this whole idea of reinventing something, but you need to know that. You need to understand the direction that you're taking. If I'm taking 4 left turns for no reason and just saying, well, that's what the GPS said that I'm supposed to do, are you really being critical? I mean, obviously, then you've gone in a circle, right? We all get at 4 left turns. Um, you're not really utilizing the time and the resources correctly. So you need to question it in some ways. But also there's a trust factor, right? And how we establish trust is that we say what we're going to do and we deliver on it.
Right.
And if your team is producing that regularly, then certainly you may not need to understand every aspect of it. Nobody is expecting a Scrum Master to be a rocket scientist when they are, actually, even if they were managing a rocketry type project, or agile team inside of a rocketry project. But what they do expect is that they understand the basics of where you're going, what you're doing, and clearly that you don't put gasoline in a rocket.
I'll give you a good example that's probably more relevant to a lot of people out there that can relate to. I work for a company and we were building an app for realtors. And the product owner and the product manager wanted the product to, or the app to behave in a certain way. And as they're explaining the stories, the user stories to the team said 13 points. If you know anything about Agile Scrum, 13 points, that's too large to probably deliver in a single sprint. Do you make accommodations? Sometimes you say, okay, it's 13. There's no way you can break this up. It's fine. The problem was that the next 4 stories that did the same thing, that had the same behavior, were 13 points. And that's when I kind of pumped the brakes and I said, why are we giving every story 13 points? And they said, and again, if you're a good Scrum Master, if you're practicing Agile at its core, if you're not a scheduler, if you're not just someone who's facilitating events just to sit there and take notes, then you should know that there's a problem. There's a pattern of problems. You should recognize right away.
I mean, you should
I-
care about what you're doing, right? I mean, if you're used to
exactly.
project of building a house and I was building a house for you, I should care about what your house is going to look like. And then just be like, well, it hit the schedule, right? Like you should take some care in what you're trying to produce, utilizing the resources that you do. And a Scrum Master, um, I mean, in an industry, we've been guilty of this. I think that a lot of them just like, well, I understand the basics. These are the ceremonies that I'm running. These are the reports that I'm producing. Yes. Um, Now, industry has pushed them the other direction to say, because you don't seem to take some ownership of this pocket of work in itself, now I want you to blend that role and become a product owner slash scrum master. And they're
Yes.
trying to force these two things together to create what it is that they really want. And the reality of it is that's a lot.
Put a
Um,
pin in that. Put a pin in that. We're going to come back to that. I am not a realtor. I am not a realtor, nor am I a real estate agent, nor have I spent 20, 30 years in the mortgage industry. For me to know as an agile expert, as a scrum master, as someone who has practiced this for a while, even read it in a book somewhere or a manual or took a test, that seeing a pattern of a large story, a large story, a large story after another, all being put into one sprint, that should give you the impression that there's something wrong. And you should probably say, why are we doing it this way? Why are we here and why are we doing this? And when I push back, and that's the problem too, that's another phrase that people don't like, pushback. Pushback doesn't mean no. Pushback means challenge the the logic or the lack thereof
or
that's
just
not
ask
present.
questions, be inquisitive.
Exactly. So when I asked that question, why are we giving every user story 13 points? There was a pause, and the development team said, well, because the product owner asked it. Like, why aren't you asking
But
that?
how you ask that question matters too. You can be just you can nerd out on it with them and go, well,
Yes.
let's understand this. Or you can be like, why are you doing this?
That's where we
Um,
went on the whiteboard and started drawing it out. And
yeah,
then
there's so many soft skills to a scrum master. It's nonsense.
Lord behold, we took they took the entire feature that consisted of maybe 3 months worth of work, and they said we just planned this out incorrectly because now, as a scrum master, I found that there's a root cause in the actual approach, not the delivery, not the execution, not the development. It was the approach. Needless to say, the product owner that was working on there really just didn't really consult with anyone. I mean, that was just the gist of it. But that's okay. We caught it early enough for us to spend time on it on a whiteboard to fix it, and then we were able to reestablish our cadence once again.
So
That's what a Scrum Master does.
I've been coaching quite a few scrum masters, and one of the things that I've been liking to do recently, and it's just an interesting exercise, and maybe this is a little pro tip out there. But I've been looking at the backlogs heavily as kind of filling in that role and trying to coach some scrum masters that are up. But I've been looking at their backlog and looking for discrepancies. And AI has helped a lot with that. I come into programs all the time that I know nothing about. But what AI is able to do is I can actually take parts of that backlog and then put it into business terms. What is it that this is doing? And do you see any areas where it's going to be a problem? I can also correct a lot of the formatting issues. They're not writing their user stories correctly. There's not acceptance criteria. There's not test driven development that's established in this. There's a lot of different things that it can help it kind of move around and stuff. But it's just like you're saying in that I think we have, and we're both saying this, like we have to understand the work.
Yes.
And oftentimes seeing it in a Jira backlog or whatever is just nonsense after nonsense, a million pages. But I need to be able to kind of put my hand around it and look at it from a million angles. AI is great with that.
And we discussed that the last time we spoke about this,
Yeah.
that AI is exposing a lot of things. For those out there, and I'm sort of one of them. I'm half part of me is one of them is saying that AI is killing agile, or the scrum master role is dying. I don't think it's dying. I think it's been
It's
beaten
adapting.
up, and they just the scrum master role in the last 10 years has been in the last few years, in the last 5 years, has been beaten up. It's been diminished, and it's been pushed down. A lot of scrum masters are just their status quo, scheduling everything. And you know what? AI is exposing that. AI is not going to take your job as a scrum master. It's going to show how inefficient you are as a scrum master. Because we go back to what Brent said earlier. A scrum master is the local team coach, is the team coach, is someone who's responsible for the team's performance and output. Going back to the backlog, I don't need to be a subject matter expert in real estate if I'm working for a mortgage company. I just need to know that what is the end user supposed to see when that product is out there?
Yeah, but after about 5 years of that, you're going to be, and just whether you
You're going
realize
to
it or
be
not,
a
you're good.
mortgage expert. But you understand what I mean is that you should be able to look at it from the perspective of the end user and say, this doesn't make sense to me, or
Mhm.
this makes sense to me. So you should be objective. And it's almost everybody, because again, we're talking about customer centricity. The Scrum Master's role, and let's talk about again the rudimentary or the fundamentals of a Scrum Master role. What are you supposed to do? You're supposed to make sure that the team is following agile practices. You make sure the team is maturing. I always joke, and it's not a joke, but it's reality. A sign of a good Scrum Master is somebody that works themselves out of the job because the team is so good at delivering. But that doesn't mean you're no longer working for the company. It's time for you to move on to another team. It's time for you to improve somewhere else, right?
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
the
I think you have to. I mean, some of the character, you have to be a very curious person in general, right? Like, how much are we missing out on in this world if we just don't aren't more curious about more things? I want to travel the world. I want to, I want to see more of Thailand and some of these because I'm very curious of those things. The same thing should go with what you're doing in your day to day life as a Scrum Master, as a perfect example. I mean, that's your baby. You should know as much as you can about it, and certainly try to help raise it the right way if we're using that analogy. Like, why aren't you being more inquisitive? Now, I'm not here to on Scrum Masters, and I know you're gonna bleep that, and that's why I did it. But what I am here to say is encourage and challenge those Scrum Masters that are out there to be more of a agile coach that owns and is curious and has accepted the fact that this is their passion and this is their baby. Because if
right.
we can get more of those in the industry, I think the Scrum Master role will be far more successful than just a hey, they schedule my morning stand up.
Here's the thing. Yes, we talk about how Scrum Masters are sort of failing the industry or the role. Not all of them, many of them out there, but also on the other side of that, leadership is pushing those Scrum Masters down and saying, just do what I told you. Or I'm not getting what I want out of this role that I hired you for. So here's my expectation going forward.
Mhm.
There's a disconnect. There's a disconnect, and it works both ways. Both sides.
And I see both. Yeah. And I
Yeah,
recognize, yeah,
and
they're both right.
leadership involvement is so important. We're not asking to be an agile expert. You hired an agile expert to handle the team. If you hired an agile coach or an enterprise agile coach or a release train engineer, which is the scrum master of all scrum masters, let's say, then you need to trust them that they know what they're doing, and you need to lower your guard and lower your ego to say, how can we fix this? Not, I want this fixed, do it my way. So there's a responsibility on the leadership side as well.
Mhm.
So now, did we enough on the Scrum Masters? Yes, we did.
Well, all I'm saying is don't be just a paycheck, be a passion.
I like that. Thank you, Brent. That was really nice.
Yeah.
That was very well said. So I want to go back to how AI helps Scrum Masters now. We talked about this before, how AI is really exposing the weaknesses in Agile, but it's also enabling a lot of Agile roles, Agile functionalities, and it helping you be better. How can
Oh, for
AI
sure.
help a Scrum Master?
Especially working in government, which we've done a lot of, and outside of government, but the acronyms. Oh my God. Government loves acronyms. It's tough, right? Because you get to a certain point in the sentence, and then there's 4 or 5 acronyms that represent some department or represent some document or represent a million different things. But AI is able to really translate that to you going, I don't know what this is. You can have very honest conversations with it, and it will tell you everything that does, how it's connected to this. Like, it allows you to shift your perspective all over the place without spending 25 minutes asking a million dumb questions on a call and just wasting everyone's time. And not just in government. I think that um, AI is able to ragged correctly and asked correctly, explain things in anyone's terms and in anyone's language. And because of that, it is a powerful communication tool to yourself.
Scrum Masters are not schedulers. They're not coordinators. They're not facilitators. Well, they facilitate, but that's not their main role. Their main role is to make sure that the team is performing well at a high level. So how do you do that, Scrum Masters? Do you just make sure that they stay within the confines of what the Agile Manifesto says? Sure. But it's your responsibility to continue growing the team. You have to recognize this pattern. Then you have to go to the root cause of that problem. Then you have to make sure that the team is educated on Agile or trained or needs additional training, needs additional tools. There's a lot of misconception. And I took one of my very first Scrum Master training videos. It said, if a team needs a fan, get them a fan. Okay, sure. It's too hot. Got to make sure the development team is working really well. And I get that. I get that because you want them to be focused on what they're supposed to be focused on. But it goes beyond that. Does the team need new coding software, or they need a new monitors, or do they need training on a new class, or they need a refresher course? Are you conducting a recheck every 3 to 6 months on your working agreement and saying, hey, does this still work for us? Do we need to update anything in here? Did you even create a working agreement? That's what you're supposed to do as a Scrum Master. AI can help you create those working agreements, capture metrics on if those agreements are being followed or not, and make the determination, where do I go from here? Now that I got the metrics, where do I go from here? Where do I need to focus my attention on? Where does the team need to be improving?
Yeah. I mean, I look at it like ship captain, right?
Yeah.
In the sense that I've got an engineer working on the engine. I've got a chef down if this was a large ship, cooking the meals. I've got another ship hand that is doing, deck work or whatever. I may not know everything about all of those areas. I certainly, but I know that we're running a diesel engine. I know that we're going and we're having steak tonight. I don't know crap about making steak. But you are the orchestrator and set of direction saying, look, we're going north by northwest and we all have a common goal. And we're going to create this environment that is fantastic for our guests or whatever. And we're going to go visit this island that's over here. You are setting that direction and making sure that everyone is cohesively marching in those directions, or in this case, sailing in those directions. And sometimes the ship captain is going to need to serve a plate.
Yep.
You're a servant
And
leader.
you just reminded me of, again, the video that we love so much about the Admiral of the Submarine.
Yes. The
Yeah.
submarine.
We'll
You
get
don't
put the
stand a
link in there.
chance. Set
Yeah, you don't
intent.
stand a chance. You
Set
don't stand a
intent.
chance.
Yeah.
If an admiral in the Navy can say, I don't know what everybody else on the ship does,
We should drop that
so
link in here. It's great.
I'm definitely going to drop it. If the admiral of a Navy says that I don't know everything that happens on this ship and I let them run it and I only have 2 decisions to make, only 2 decisions, launching of weapons and abandoning ship or whatever else. I'm paraphrasing here, but that's the only thing that he took out. But when people talk to him and they don't say, hey, Captain, can I drop down to this or can I drop down to that? No, they don't say that. They say, Captain, I'm going to drop 20 knots because of this and this and that, and it's safe.
Mm-hmm.
Go. That's it. They don't even ask for permission anymore. They just let the captain know what they're going to do. That's a well-run, oiled machine. That's as a Scrum Master, that's what you want for your team. You want your team to be operating without needing you. And that's okay. Because if you do that so well, believe me when I tell you, you're not only elevating your game, you're elevating your career, and you're elevating you're ready to move on.
Well, and so I had this conversation recently. We can't name names on here, but there was somebody that had started as Scrum Master, working with me as an RTE, had moved into the RTE role, grown into that, and then we got everything moving so smoothly that this person was like, "Look, my days are getting really easy. What else do you have for me? Because everything's running really smoothly." And my response was just hold on. Like, look, enjoy the couple of moments here. And what ended up happening is, because everything's running so smoothly, they start piling on more work.
Yeah.
The customer wanted us to do more because you do it well. And then, of course, this person was like, oh my God, now I'm a solution train engineer. Now what am I doing? Like things. And that's the other counterproductive thing to Scrum Masters. If you're doing it well, you might not be one for long.
No, exactly. And you will be recognized for what you're doing. And then you'll move in the direction that you're supposed to move into. Now, going back to AI, AI is going to help you with a lot of things. Here's the thing that AI is not going to replace. It's not going to replace psychological safety. It's not going to replace conflict resolution. It is just not going to do that. It's not going to build trust between you and the team. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of soft skills. And when Brett said at the beginning of this episode, you need thick skin, you're going to get the pushback. You're going to get cussed at, maybe. We've been through it.
I've seen chairs thrown. And
we're
not to
gonna,
freak people out, but
we got
it's
told.
things get they get a little edgy or a little spicy, if you will, sometimes. Hopefully you have the right culture, that you're not in a situation where it gets really, really spicy. I've worked for some very bad companies. I won't name names. Call me directly. I'll tell you what they are.
Comment
But
below. And he'll
yeah, um,
definitely.
I mean, emotions get mixed, and there is a lot of pressure on a Scrum Master. And if you're not feeling pressure, you're probably not doing it right.
Right. Exactly. And, what's that saying in football? Winning fixes everything. So if you're winning at this game, then you're going to get noticed. Trust me. Let's talk about how does a Scrum Master, again, we said we're going to shit on Scrum Masters, and it's out of love. It's not because
Yes.
we don't like Scrum Masters. We want you to evolve. We want you to reclaim the authority that came with the title Scrum Master. It's leading without authority, and you can do it. And Brent and I had to learn that if you have the knowledge, you have the solution, you have the right skills, you can lead without authority. People will respect and allow you to lead them, and say, because remember, if you're going to lead a team, you need their permission to lead. It's a
Yes.
two-way street. They need to respect you just as much as you need to respect them. They have to allow you to lead them as much as you want to lead them.
Mhm.
So how can the Scrum Masters evolve now? Well, you can think in systems. Stop being in the status quo. Stop being a scheduler. Um, Learn more about the metrics and how they flow, and see where you can identify those gaps. Understand finance. I know it's a bad word in a lot of organizations. Understand it. Don't take on it. Just understand it. Understand the product. Understand what's being delivered. Perform a diagnostic on the bottlenecks. But it's not just there. It's not just the Scrum Master. Leadership, you have some responsibility too.
Yeah. My call out to the leadership would be, hey, and this happens all the time too, right? And that things are going really well for that Agile team. The Scrum Master is performing really well. The leadership wants more. They
Yeah.
want to see more story points. They start putting their thumb on the scale. They want to see more out of the objectives. They want to get, a higher flow or throughput, if you will, and are kind of sticking their fingers in there, or they're interfering with the team's estimation tactics, or there's all kinds of things that leadership does as well that really throws a wrench in this thing. And I would certainly challenge leadership to allow some autonomy, to understand what you can and can't change,
Yes.
and certainly not get in there to where
Guardrail.
you think that you're just
Provide them the
right.
guardrails to play in.
Yeah.
Give them the guardrails to stay within, and tell them, you know what? You go ahead.
Yeah.
Just give them
And look,
authority with
sometimes it's
responsibility.
acceptable to go, this isn't working. We're going to change that. But take accountability for that.
Yes. And do not, if this is a message for leadership, allow upward feedback, and stop using Scrum Master as translators for your whatever you're trying to portray. So if you're a Scrum Master, you got to evolve beyond ceremonies. If you're a leader, examine how you are structuring the role. If you want to learn more, comment below. I'm giving out a class this coming week, and there's a lot of classes that I'm putting together for Scrum Master, Safe Scrum Master, because a regular Scrum Master class teaches you how to be a Scrum Master at a team. Safe Scrum Master teaches you how to operate in an organization that's full of Scrum Masters and full of other teams. So thank you so much for joining us. Brent, any final words?
Nope. It's just great to be here. As always, it's fun. I'm appreciate you guys tapping in. And look, we may have just pissed off a lot of people. I hope that we created a conversation in your own head of what you think. And I would love to hear that actually. Like, what do you think? And this is from both leadership as well as from, the industry Scrum Masters that are out there. I did spend a lot of time on focusing in on what Scrum Master's role is. And look, as a leader in the industry, I recognize my role and where we really screw things up. And I come from the same place. So I would look for more conversations about that, because what I want to make sure happens is that Scrum Masters have a strong future in this industry. And to do that, I think we have to meet in the middle somewhere here a little bit.
Yes.
So come have a conversation with us. Let's talk about it.
Comment below. Comment below. If you're a Scrum Master, if you're a leader, if you're somebody that agrees, disagrees, we'd love to hear from you. We want to hear what you have to say. Brent, thank you for joining me again. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, comment, and help us grow this community. Share it with someone that you know. Share it with a Scrum Master that's struggling or may not like this. You never know. All right? Have a great one, everyone. This is Hoz, and this is Best Friend Radio.
I certainly wouldn't have a house that is bright pink. No offense to you pink fans. Yeah, you may want to edit that out. I don't mean to backlogs and what is that? Is that backlogs? Are we supposed to use that word? I'm just trying to create a bunch of stuff for Oz to have to edit the shit out of.
Yeah, you're just throwing crap for me to edit. I'm just gonna bleep it all out and edit it out. But whatever you're trying to. All right. So wrap it up.
I have 4 minutes before I got to stop.
So we're wrapping up.
We'll get in.